A little birdie told me that you want to learn how to dress up as the Onceler for your next con. Or maybe you want to dress up as him for a fancy dress party, or you like to dress very eccentrically to visit Tesco's. Regardless, I'm going to show you how to recreate my Onceler baddie cosplay from head to toe, including the guitar that I spent a month making and forgot to bring with me to con, but it's okay, she'll make another reappearance. Okay, let's go! Lose it tonight. First, let's start with the Onceler's outfit. For my cosplay, I have a mix of store-bought and DIY'd accessories. As for the store-bought, his jacket, his belt chain, his tie, and his gloves are all store-bought items. So the Onceler has a pair of funky frames that are a really easy DIY. I got these pair of shades from Shein. I'll leave a link in the description for all of the items I bought for my cosplay. To make life easier for yourself, you're going to cover the lenses with some masking tape. When they're fully covered, you can apply a really strong glue very liberally, essentially douse the glasses in glitter until everything is covered. Let it dry overnight and peel off the tape and you've got some funky glittery frames. For the Onceler's hat, I did DIY it, but I will preface now, I don't think it's worth your time. I say this because the materials were actually quite expensive, but if you enjoy crafting and you want to invest and learn how to use new materials like me, feel free to give it a go. Okay, so for the base of the hat, we're using a material called Craftex. Essentially, it's a heat fusible interfacing, which is a starchy, stiff fabric that can be used to give more structure to clothing items. You find it a lot in collars for shirts or in hats in this case. The reason I used Craftex is because the Onceler's hat has this wavy, wonky signature style that's very typical of Dr. Seuss. However, you will see how that goes in a minute. Professional cosplayers, please look away now because I did not use a pattern for this hat. I basically just took some material, wrapped it around my head and called it a day. Don't do that, you'll just end up wasting material and Craftex is too pricey to waste. Essentially, you're going to want a long rectangle and a circle, one for the base or body of the hat and one for the top of the hat. You're then going to sew up the ends of the rectangle together, which will give you a cylindrical hat shape-esque thing. This material is really stiff, so you're going to have to use heat to mold it into the shape that you want. Since we want a rounder shape, I'm going to take a handheld steamer and steam the inside of the fabric just so everything smooths out a little bit, the same way you would iron out wrinkles in normal clothing. Just be careful not to burn or rip any holes in the fabric from the steam. I then take some jewelry wire and attach a circle to the top and bottom of the hat to give it more structure. Now for the fun part, taking a heat gun, you're gonna apply even heat along the sides of the hat. The idea here is since Craftex is a heat fusible fabric, it will shrink under heat, creating that distorted, warped shape that the Onceler's hat has. However, I don't know what I did wrong, but my Craftex just wasn't warping the way it should have been. I might have just bought the wrong kind, or maybe my heat gun wasn't hot enough, I'm not too sure. Either way, if you are going to DIY this, I honestly recommend getting some normal interfacing that isn't as expensive as Craftex and skipping this step altogether. So since my original plan didn't work, I went with a backup option. Decided to rip out the stitches that were combining the two ends of the rectangle together and adding a second panel. The key here is to make this second panel a trapezoid shape. It's going to give a similar type of shape that we wanted from using heat fusible fabric. It just won't be as 3D from all angles. This is a similar kind of pattern to a Mad Hatter hat, so you can look for patterns based on that. The brim of the hat is so much easier to make. To measure out the brim, I just used a hat that I already had to scale, or you can use a plate as well. I'm using Craftex for interfacing, but you can use a cheaper variety as well. Once you've traced out your pattern, you're going to fold over your fabric so you have two sides and cut out two felt circles for the brim of the hat. Felt is a way more cost-efficient option to use for a build like this. It also has a plush type of look that the Onceler hat has. Since we've already built the base of our hat, you can trace that directly onto felt and cut out the lid for the top hat as well, folding over the felt so that you get two pieces of felt at one time. The top of the hat doesn't need the same curvature as the rest of it, so we're going to use standard interfacing. It's not as thick as craft text, but will still give us the structure we need to create a sturdy build while being more cost effective. Once you've cut everything out, you should have a complete base, 1 circle of interfacing and 2 circles of felt for the lid of the hat, 1 circle of craft text and 2 circles of felt for the brim. I really wanted to recreate the plush look that the Onceler's top hat has, especially in the brim. So I ended up adding another circle of felt just to thicken up the fabric. I then glued one edge of the felt fabrics together, creating a kind of pocket like you can see. I then grabbed whatever random tissue paper I had from my many Amazon packages and used it as stuffing to essentially create a plushy brim to my top hat. I think a skill every cosplayer has is seeing how versatile random household materials can be. I am renowned for never throwing things away because I can always see the potential in them being created into new props. So once I felt like the brim had enough stuffing, I sealed the edges with some hot glue. This was a very trust the process kind of situation. I just kind of had a vague idea of how I wanted to do things and didn't look up any tutorials whatsoever. I also received many hot glue burns, but you know what? I think the finished result was pretty decent. This is the part where you're gonna have to trust the process because the con crunch was crunching real hard and I don't have that much footage, but here we go. Once your brim is fully sealed, you're gonna cut out a circle from the center. You'll have to re-glue the center folds of the felt. You'll be left with a donut-shaped brim. I then hand stitched everything together and covered it all with black velvet, all of which was done very sleep deprived in my hotel room. Of course, while watching the Lorax, just because it felt culturally appropriate. Now don't judge me, I was really sleep deprived and couldn't be asked to glue on the ribbon to my hat. It is literally held in place with a pin, as you can see. But I would say it was quite structurally sound. Now, if you want to know how I did my makeup for my badified Onceler cosplay that lasted all night at the con, we're talking about 12 hours of wear, no touch-ups, along with my godforsaken guitar that still haunts me to this day. Then stay tuned for part 2 and part 3 coming out this week. I'll also be posting brand new cosplays all October on my Instagram and TikTok, so follow me there, or just subscribe to my channel as I'll be posting them as YouTube shorts as well. Alright, see you in part 2. Bye!